I'm going to go over a few stocks on the 5-minute time frame. These stocks also have some gaps to fill. The first one is INTC, ticker symbol T. We ended the week at $15.61, down more than 1.5%. To the north side from where we are takes us to a gap that goes to the upside starting at roughly $15.66. The middle of the trend or resistance from where we are is roughly $15.69. That gap closes out at roughly $15.87. 2 standard deviations is roughly $15.92. Another gap forms to the upside at roughly $16.03, right along 3 standard deviations. That gap closes to the upside at roughly $16.07. And 4 standard deviations is roughly $16.15. To the south side, at -2 standard deviations is roughly $15.47, $15.36, and $15.24. Note the bounce at support here along -2 standard deviations and the sell-off, clear sell-off over here at 2 standard deviations. This line is resistance. People are taking their profits and they are running. And anytime we get to this area, I do anticipate a sell-off for a possible bounce to the upside, but that just all depends on the chart. Now, the next stock I want to go over, very quickly, the 1-year price target on AT&T is $20.45. We are a long ways off. That represents a 30% increase. The RSI is at 19. This is oversold, so I do anticipate a bounce. The next stock is Intel, ticker symbol INTC. We ended the week at $31.85. We are sitting right here. To the north side, a gap fill begins at roughly $32.06. 2 standard deviations is where that gap also closes out to the upside at roughly $32.50. And 3 standard deviations is roughly $32.89. And to the north side of that, at 4 standard deviations, takes us to roughly $33.29. A gap forms to the upside at roughly $33.33, closes out at roughly $33.51, and another gap to the upside forms at roughly $33.75 and closes out at $34.09. Now, to the south side, the middle of the trend or support in this case is roughly $31.65, $30.83. -3 standard deviations is roughly $30.41 and $30.03. I did buy some shares for my mom at roughly $29.59. So this is a long-term buy and hold for her. And the RSI is at 16, well below the oversold zone. I anticipate a little bit of a bounce. And the next stock is CSX, Transportation Railroads here, the sector. We are at the middle of the trend. And to the north side from where we are takes us to roughly $33.63. A gap forms to the upside at roughly $33.74. 3 standard deviations is roughly $33.80. That gap closes out at about $33.84 and $33.96. Note the other gap to the upside that forms at roughly $34.14, closes out at roughly $34.33. The 1-year price target is $35.63, which represents a 7% return from where we are. From here to here, very doable. The next leg down would take us to negative 2 standard deviations, and that is roughly 32.99, 32.82, and 32.66. Note the clear bounce at support along this line as well. The RSI is at 22 and going sideways. I do anticipate a bounce as people buy the dip. The next stock is Pfizer. We ended the week at 35.53, down just a scotch. We are sitting right here above the middle of the trend. To the north side takes us to 35.85, 36.06. A gap forms at roughly 4 standard deviations, which is about 36.27, and it closes out at roughly 36.39. To the south side. Actually, let me show you one thing before I show you the numbers. To the south side, the 1-year price target on TradingView is $46.05, which represents a nearly 30% return on your money. And of course, we are a long ways off, but I just wanted to show you that. Now, to the south side, the middle of the trend or support from where we are takes us to roughly 35.45. 35.04. Another level of support at negative 3 standard deviations is 34.84 and 34.62 roughly. The RSI is at 30 and turning up. So I anticipate a bounce here as people start to buy in on Pfizer. The next stock is Verizon. I did buy some for my mom. I am down, but I am not worried about it because of the upside potential. And we are sitting at $35.90, down more than 3%. To the north side from where we are takes us to a gap fill at roughly 36.33. Let me change that out. That gap begins at 36.31. The middle of the trend takes us to roughly 36.37, also a form of resistance from where we are, this line. That gap closes out at roughly 37.12, which is also basically 2 standard deviations. Now another gap forms to the upside at roughly 37.41, closes out at roughly 37.49. Now 3 standard deviations would take us out to the gap closure there to the upside at 37.49. And 4 standard deviations is roughly 37.85. The 1-year price target is $41.70, which represents a 16% increase that has been revised downward. When I looked at this on April 27th, it was at $42.10. Again, we're at $41.70 for the 1-year price target. Now, not sure why I marked out the 33, so ignore that line. To the south side from where we are takes us to negative 2 standard deviations, and that is roughly 35.63. 35.25, and 34.89. The RSI is at 12 and definitely oversold. So with this stock as well, I do anticipate a bounce. And let me look back and show you this gap fill that closed out at $35.85. Now, let me show you one more, and that's going to be EXC, Exelon. Here, let me make that just a little bit bigger and easier to read for you. To the north side from where we are, which is $40.96, where we closed out, takes us to the middle of the trend, and that is roughly 41.10, and that is also resistance. A gap forms to the upside at roughly 41.16, closes out at roughly 41.43. 2 standard deviations is roughly 41.62. 41.87, and another form of resistance, which is a sell signal for me, is $42.14. This is a sell, sell, sell if you are taking profits and you are running. And note the clear sell-off right here at 2 standard deviations. And then it broke through support down here and then bounced at this level, basically -2 standard deviations, a bounce to the upside. And to the south side, because there's always a south side, -2 standard deviations is roughly 40.59. A gap forms to the downside at roughly 40.38. -3 standard deviations is roughly 40.33. That gap closes out at 40.14. And 40.07. The RSI is turning up, and we are at 41. Hopefully it comes to this level, and if it reaches here, this would be my sell signal. This is overbought. People will start selling off in this range as well to take their profits. And looking back in time, note the sell-off right here at 70 and above, as people start to take their profits, and then the stock starts to sell off and then finds its footing at support down here and bounces. That does it for me. That is a look at AT&T, Intel, CSX, and Pfizer, Verizon, and Exelon. So if there is a stock that you would like me to go over, please let me know.